Okay, easier to talk through it than it is to try to write it out. In this case, I'll use the elemental demo that you're displaying as your reference and to demonstrate how, in this case, the lighting effect has been pushed into the cave as part of this design, let's say, and some of the dirty trick that is being used in this as to pushing a lighting effect into the area. Now, looking at your reference as to where the lighting source is coming from, we can see that we have a directional light that is coming in, creating the necessary lighting levels as our base lighting, but we want to take this information that is coming in and kind of bounce it around. Now, as far as explaining how things worked with the ambient cube map, you have to have lighting information to begin with that affects the area, and all it does is it changes the ambient level overall as compared to everything around it. It's as opposed to using lighting levels as a means of brightness control. So in this case, we have lighting that's being pushed into the back here, all the way into the back. That is adding a degree of light, but is not affecting the total area as to shadowing effects. And as I mentioned, that's a pretty rather common trick that's been used forever. It's not unique to, in any sense of the imagination, to something that's available in Unreal 4, and it's really a simple way to being able to create this level of control. So in this case, we have some lighting elements that are in the scene, and I'll demonstrate what's going on here with just one light as to the intention. So in this case, if I select this light here, we look over to our panel. The first thing that we notice is the intensity level is set down to 0.1, which is very, very, very low attenuation as far as lighting being pushed lighting into this area. But the one thing you should notice is down here is cast shadow is turned off. So if we turn that on, based on the light level, the key lighting location of where this lighting element is located in three-dimensional space starts to become a little bit more obvious. Another thing that was done is if we go over here and we turn on, do an INB search, you see that use inverse square fall off has been turned off. So if we go ahead and turn that on, you can see that the nature of our environment lighting has changed. So if we go back to our intensity level and we yard up the intensity level a little bit, you can see we start getting a spot lighting type of effect in this area. Now if we go ahead and we turn on cast shadow, you can see that now we have a rather different effect as to location of this lighting relative to 3D space in the form of a shadow being cast in this direction. If we turn off cast shadow, the lighting element becomes an ambient fill. But because we have an inverse cutoff, we have to kind of overcome the fact that we no longer have a cast shadow as we increase to push the lighting based on the radius. We have to increase the amount of intensity. So this is not what we're after. What we're after is 0.1 as our sample here. But to have that ignore the fall off, we have to turn off cast inverse shadow. You can see the shadowing effect here. Maybe I'll turn it off and on a couple of times to see what's happening. So if you see what's happening, if we turn off cast of use inverse square fall off, the lighting effect will go outwards based on the overall radius of our lighting element. So if we go ahead and we backspace a little bit and we increase the attenuation, you can see that our attenuation is starting to move out a little bit more. Let's turn up the intensity a little bit more so it becomes a little bit more apparent. As we increase the intensity level, we can see that we have a lot more control of the ambient fill of this element pushing lighting information into the farther reaches. So even going all the way back into the cave here, for example, by increasing the attenuation level. So by doing that, we can actually decrease it into the area that we want, changes to a lower value, and it just adds a little bit more, it pushes more information of ambient lighting into the back areas here, as opposed to if we remove it, you see how it becomes a little bit more too dark. If we bring it back, we are spilling light into the area. So even if we go all the way back here, there's all these little lighting elements based on the attenuation radius with the cast shadows turned off as well as inverse square. So it's the same as this light over here, just to kind of add in the highlighting light highlighting types of lights that you it seems to me that you're looking for. Okay, hope that kind of explains things a little bit more simpler, but it's an old trick that's been used to increase the overall ambient lighting fill without without blowing out everything else as a lighting solution, regardless of this source light coming in from the top here. Hope that makes sense to you. It should also be noted that there is a fair number of reflection components being used, spherical reflection capture. So if we have anything in the background going on, as far, let's see what happens if we actually delete that. So you see that that the lighting using reflection spheres also diffuse the lighting into something a little bit more interesting and natural into the background. Okay, hope that makes sense and gets you to where you need to go. Pretty simple, pretty common trick that's been used going all the way back since I can remember. Okay, bye-bye.